Welcome back, everyone. Tonight I'll be reading you a collection of Reddit stories while Minecraft runs quietly in the background. These stories are here to help you relax, unwind, and let your mind drift as you settle in for the night. Whether you're trying to fall asleep, or just need something calm to have on while you build or focus, this is your safe space to slow down. So get comfortable, close your eyes if you'd like, and let's begin tonight's stories. Here's story 1. My neighbor said my package was community mail. When I first moved into my triplex, the shared front stoop seemed harmless. One slab of concrete, one sagging railing, one potted plant that nobody watered. Packages would be stacked neatly by the door, and we'd each grab the ones with our names. Simple, right? That system worked for nearly a year, until Luca, my neighbor, decided parcels were a communal experiment. The first time it happened, I brushed it off. My mechanical keyboard had been marked. Delivered 1:41 p.m., complete with a photo of the box propped against the railing. By the time I got home, there was nothing. Luca was outside, misting his ferns like they were priceless artifacts. "Oh, don't worry," he said. "I brought the deliveries inside. Didn't want porch pirates getting them." That sounded considerate, until I asked for my package and he shook his head. "Actually, I think those were mine." I pulled up the tracking app, showed him my name and unit. He shrugged like he just heard the weather. "Photos get mixed up all the time." When I suggested we check the labels together, he stiffened. "I'm not comfortable showing my personal information to someone I barely know." That night, through a gap in his blinds, I saw the box. Orange. "Handle with care." Sticker glaring under lamplight. It was unmistakably mine. I knocked, told him what I'd seen. He smiled like a patient teacher correcting a child. "Must be coincidence." I said we could call the police if needed. He disappeared, returned with the keyboard, and offered a theatrical shrug. "Mix-up," he said, as though the word could erase the lie. I took my package back, unsettled by the thought that maybe this wasn't a one-off misunderstanding. The second incident came the following week. This time I was ready. I placed my phone on the windowsill, recording like a wildlife camera. Around 3:07 p.m., the courier dropped a box with the same bright sticker. Within a minute, Luca's door opened. He glanced around, scooped up the parcel, and slipped inside like it was the most natural thing in the world. When I confronted him later, he insisted it was his. "Headphones," he said vaguely. "Been waiting on them forever." He refused to let me check the label, claiming it was an invasion of privacy. But my tracking app chimed again, delivery confirmed to my unit, with another photo to prove it. The box in the photo matched exactly what I'd just seen him take. I asked again to see the shipping label. He crossed his arms and muttered, "Trust me, these are mine." That night I saw the same package through his window, the logo shining plain as day. I took a photo this time. When I knocked, I didn't bother with pleasantries. "Label. Now." He tried shutting the door, but I wedged my foot in. I pulled up my phone and pressed record. "I just want to verify," I said. His face flickered through surprise, anger, calculation. At last he fetched the box, handed it over reluctantly, and muttered, "You're making this adversarial. We share a stoop." I pointed at the label with my name. "We don't share this." For days afterward, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched every time a delivery van slowed near our building. By the third time, I'd had enough. I caught him red-handed again, this time actually peeling the tape on a box addressed to me. His excuse? "I was checking the contents. Could have been dangerous." That was the last straw. I called building management, who came down and spoke to both of us. Luca insisted he was only trying to keep the porch organized, and that I was ungrateful. The manager made it crystal clear, from now on, he was not to touch packages not addressed to him. It worked, for 9 quiet days. Then a courier mistakenly left another small envelope at the stoop. By the time I opened my door, Luca already had it in hand. He dropped it fast when he saw me, mumbling, "Old habits." I rerouted all my deliveries to my workplace after that. Less convenient, but far less stressful. Still, the whole ordeal left a sour taste. Luca never apologized. To him, it wasn't theft, it was some twisted version of community care. One evening, he even knocked on my door with a little brass bell. "For the porch," he said. "To keep away cats." I took it, thanked him, and hung it inside my door instead. Now, whenever the wind rattles it, I'm reminded of two things. First, to lock down my own boundaries. Second, that not everyone who says community really means yours. That's the end of this story. Take a moment, get comfortable, and let's move on to the next. Story 2. A stranger sat at my table and swapped our plates. I had a simple plan: meet my friend for sushi at 6:30, catch up on work gossip, go home happy. The hostess led me to a quiet booth, and I ordered a drink while I waited. The server suggested a tempura appetizer, and I figured, why not? My friend texted, "Running 10 minutes late." No big deal. 5 minutes later, as I was scrolling my phone, a woman slid into the booth across from me. She was maybe mid-30s, blonde hair tucked under a floppy hat, tote bag bulging with who knows what. Without a word, she reached for a piece of tempura. "Thanks for ordering," she said through a mouthful. "I'm starving." At first, I thought she had the wrong table. I think there's been a mistake," I said, glancing around. She shrugged. "Don't be so selfish. Sharing is caring, right?" She popped another piece into her mouth. I explained that I was waiting for someone and that she needed to find her own table. She laughed. "Your table? It's a restaurant, honey. Tables are for everyone." The server stopped by, and I quickly explained she wasn't with me. "Oh, I'll just have whatever she's having," the woman, who later introduced herself as Tanya, declared. The server gave me an uneasy look and said she'd get the manager. Tanya rolled her eyes like I was overreacting. "You look so lonely sitting here. I thought I'd keep you company. You should be thanking me." The manager came over, and I repeated my story. This random woman had sat at my table uninvited and was eating my food. Tanya cut in with, "I'm just being social. She looked pathetic sitting here alone." The manager asked Tanya if she had a reservation. She admitted she didn't, but claimed restaurants were community spaces. Eventually, the manager coaxed her out of my booth. I thought that was the end of it. Then my friend arrived, and I filled her in. We laughed about how bizarre it was. But halfway through our main course, Tanya came back. This time, she stood by our table holding her own plate of pasta. "I ordered the same dish as you," she announced to me. "And I thought we could compare." Before I could react, she swapped my half-eaten plate with her untouched one. "There," she said smugly. "Now we're even." My friend and I stared in disbelief. The manager stormed over, voice sharper now. "Ma'am, you cannot steal other customers' meals." Tanya crossed her arms. "This is discrimination. I'm a paying customer like everyone else." The manager explained she disrupted multiple diners and would have to leave. Tanya reluctantly swapped the plates back but made sure to take one more bite first. "Too salty anyway," she muttered. As security escorted her out, she stopped at 2 more tables, asking if she could sample their food. The rest of dinner felt surreal. My friend and I kept replaying the scene, trying to make sense of Tanya's logic. Who just walks into a restaurant, sits at a stranger's table, and then acts like you're rude for objecting? Later that week, my friend sent me a link to a local community group post. Someone had complained about unfriendly diners who refused to share, and described the incident almost word for word, except in Tanya's version, I was the rude one. She wrote that she was just trying to build connections in an increasingly cold world, and was shocked that people would rather eat alone than enjoy communal dining. The comments section tore her apart, pointing out that she had basically stolen food. But a handful of people defended her, saying society had gotten too individualistic. That thought made me shiver. Was it possible Tanya actually believed she was in the right? I never saw her again, but now whenever I sit in a restaurant, I instinctively guard my plate like a dragon hoarding treasure. Because apparently, there are people out there who think sharing is caring applies to other people's dinners. That chapter is closed. Now, settle back in as we dive into another bizarre tale. Story 3. My roommate locked me out for a date. Living with roommates is a gamble. Most of the time, it works fine. Split rent, shared fridge, occasional arguments about dishes. But sometimes you draw the short straw. My short straw was named Milo. We'd been living together for about 8 months. Usually, we respected each other's space. But one Friday evening, I came home from a study session to find the chain lock secured from the inside. My key could only crack the door open a few inches. "Milo?" I called. He shuffled to the door, whispering, "Hey man, I've got a situation. Can you hang out somewhere else tonight?" I blinked. "What do you mean?" "This is my apartment too," he sighed. "I've got a girl over. Things are going really well, and I don't want to ruin the vibe. Just be a bro and give me a few hours." I reminded him I had texted earlier that I'd be home at 7. He waved it off. "I forgot. Just go to a coffee shop or something. It's already night," I said. "I need my books, my laptop, my bed. Come on, don't make this weird. She thinks I live alone." That last part floored me. He'd lied to his date about living alone, and now he wanted me to stay away so he could keep up the act. I told him that wasn't my problem. I wasn't going to wander the streets just so he could impress someone. "Please," he begged. "This is my only shot. I've liked her for months." I said no. He offered to Venmo me money for dinner. He offered to buy me movie tickets. He even offered to pay for a hotel. I kept repeating, "This is my apartment too." Finally, his date's voice drifted from the living room. "Is everything okay?" Milo called back. "Just a noisy neighbor." That pushed me over the edge. "I'm not a neighbor," I yelled through the crack. "I'm his roommate. He locked me out." Silence. Then hurried whispers. A few minutes later, Milo unchained the door, scowling. His date was gathering her things, clearly annoyed. "Thanks a lot," he muttered. "You ruined everything." She shot him a look. "Maybe you should have mentioned you had a roommate," she snapped before leaving. The fallout was immediate. Milo sulked for days, insisting I had sabotaged his relationship. "You could have just stayed out a few hours," he said. "You didn't have to humiliate me." I pointed out that lying to her wasn't my fault, and locking me out of my own apartment was unacceptable. He argued that since he'd found the apartment first, he had dibs. I showed him our lease agreement with both our names. Dibs isn't a legal term. He finally dropped the subject, but things between us never recovered. Every time he had someone over, I half expected to come home to the chain lock again. I started keeping proof of our texts, just in case. Eventually, I moved out. Best decision I ever made. Because if a roommate thinks their dating life matters more than your right to enter your own home, you're not just living with them, you're living with their delusion. That story's finished. Breathe out, relax your shoulders, and let's continue with the next one. Story 4. My neighbor tried to charge me for using the sidewalk. Walking my dog is usually the most uneventful part of my day. Same route, same trees, same cracks in the pavement. I'd been walking past Bernice's house for 3 years without incident. Then one Monday morning, she came outside holding a clipboard, a calculator, and a pen clipped to her collar like she was running a Fortune 500 company. "Excuse me," she called out. "We need to talk about your sidewalk usage." At first, I thought she was joking. Sidewalk usage? I was literally walking on the public sidewalk, leash in one hand, coffee in the other. But her face was serious. "You've been using this stretch of sidewalk almost daily. That's wear and tear I have to manage. It's only fair that frequent users contribute." I laughed nervously. It's a public sidewalk. She tapped her clipboard. Technically, homeowners are responsible for upkeep. I sweep it, I shovel snow, I even pressure wash. You walk by at least twice a day, 7 days a week. That's 14 passes. 14 passes times 4 weeks equals 56. At 50 cents per pass, you owe me $28 for March. I stared at her like she just declared herself mayor. I'm not paying you to walk my dog. Her lips pursed. Then I'll have to start adding interest. At first, I brushed it off. But when I got home that evening, taped to my front door was a handwritten invoice. Sidewalk usage fee, March 2023, 56 passes at 50 cents. Total, $28. Payment due in 10 business days. She'd even drawn a fake seal at the bottom and signed it, Bernice, Sidewalk Maintenance Coordinator. The next morning, she was waiting again with her clipboard. Outstanding balance is now $29.50, including late fees. I told her I wasn't paying ever. She sniffed. Fine. But I'm keeping detailed records. The following week, she escalated. I came home to find orange traffic cones blocking the sidewalk in front of her house with a handwritten sign. Private sidewalk, $1 per use. Exact change only. I moved the cones aside, and she stormed out. That's theft of services, she shouted. So I called the city. Public Works confirmed, sidewalks are public right-of-way. Property owners may maintain them, but they cannot restrict access or charge tolls. They sent someone out the next day. When the city worker arrived, Bernice argued furiously, waving her invoices in his face. He patiently explained the law and warned her not to block the sidewalk again. She finally removed the cones but glared at me like I'd sabotaged her big business venture. I thought that was the end of it. But the next evening, Bernice knocked on my door holding a glossy flyer she'd clearly printed at Staples. Since the city won't allow tolls, she said cheerfully, I'm offering monthly sidewalk passes. For $20, you'll have unlimited use of the sidewalk in front of my house. It's a great deal. I laughed. I already have unlimited use, it's called the law. Her smile froze. Without a pass, I can't stop you, but I can make your experience unpleasant. That sounded way too much like a threat, so I called the non-emergency police line. Officers visited her and told her to cut it out. Since then, she hasn't tried charging me again, though she still watches me from her porch like a hawk whenever I pass. My dog, oblivious, wags at her every time. It's almost funny in hindsight. Some people will monetize anything if they think they can get away with it. Bernice genuinely thought she could turn a strip of public concrete into her personal toll road. And the wildest part? She still doesn't think she was wrong. Another story wrapped up. The next one might be even stranger. Story 5. A stranger followed me home claiming my house was his. It was a normal Saturday grocery run. Bags of bread and produce in my hands, keys ready in my pocket. That's when I noticed a man about 20 feet behind me. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Plenty of people live in my neighborhood. But when I turned onto my street, he turned too. When I stopped at my front gate, he walked right up. Finally, he said with relief. I thought I'd never find my way home. I frowned. Sorry? He shifted the duffel bag on his shoulder. This is my house. Been gone a while, but I'm back. I pointed at the mailbox with my name printed in bold letters. This is my house. I've lived here 3 years. He introduced himself as Harold. No, I've been here for 8. I left for work overseas, rented it out temporarily, but now I'm back. You need to leave. I held up my keys. If this was your house, how do I have the keys? He waved it off. Copies. You must have been a tenant. Appreciate you keeping the place warm, but I'm home now. I told him to leave, but he stepped around me toward the backyard like he belonged there. I called the police. When they arrived 10 minutes later, Harold was sitting on my patio, sipping water from my glass like it was the most natural thing. Officers, he said, standing up. Thank goodness you're here. This woman is squatting in my house. I showed my driver's license, mortgage papers, utility bills. Everything matched the address. Harold produced nothing. His ID had a completely different address across town. He claimed that was his old address, and he just hadn't updated it yet. The officers asked when he'd supposedly moved back. He said yesterday. They asked for proof of ownership. He claimed the deed was inside, and I needed to hand over the keys so he could get it. We walked the officers through the house, my furniture, my food, my photos, my mail. Harold kept insisting I must have swapped everything out in a single day. One officer rubbed his forehead. The other asked Harold to describe the interior. He said, "Living room has hardwood floors, kitchen has a fridge." Generic nonsense. Eventually, the officers told Harold he had no evidence and needed to leave. He protested, claiming squatters' rights. They explained that doesn't apply when someone clearly owns the property. As they escorted him away, he shouted, "This isn't over! I know where I live!" The next morning, he was sitting on my front steps again. "I thought about it," he said calmly. "You probably bought this place in good faith, not realizing it was stolen from me in a real estate scam." I called the police again. This time, they arrested him for trespassing and got a restraining order put in place. He's not allowed within 500 feet of my address. Later, an officer told me Harold had pulled the same stunt at least 3 other houses in the past 2 years. I still feel uneasy when I walk home with groceries. There's a specific kind of chill that comes from someone looking you in the eye and insisting your home is theirs. It's not just unsettling, it's terrifying. That's the end of this story. Pause for a moment, and then let's wander into the next. Story 6. My friend sent me a surprise gas invoice. It started innocently enough. My car was in the shop, and I had an important medical appointment across town. When I mentioned the issue to my friend Priya, she immediately offered to drive me. "No worries," she said. "I'm happy to help." She picked me up right on time, chatted with me on the way, even waited while I was in the doctor's office so she could drive me back home. I thanked her several times, even offered to buy her lunch as a thank you. She waved me off. "Don't be silly. That's what friends are for." So imagine my shock the next morning when I woke up to a PayPal request for $54.60. The note said, "Gas reimbursement for Thursday ride. 96 miles at 57 cents per mile." I stared at it for a solid minute. 96 miles? The entire trip was maybe 30. Even factoring in her drive to pick me up, it didn't add up. I texted her asking about it. She replied instantly. "I calculated based on standard IRS mileage. It's only fair." I called her, still half laughing because I thought she had to be joking. She wasn't. She launched into a full explanation about wear and tear, oil usage, tire depreciation, and the fact that her time had value. "The IRS rate is actually 65 cents per mile this year," she added helpfully. "So technically you owe me more." I told her that if she wanted gas money, she should have mentioned it up front. She bristled. "You shouldn't need me to say it. It's common courtesy to offer gas money when someone drives you." I reminded her she had volunteered. "I hadn't asked?" She snapped back. "Volunteering doesn't mean subsidizing your life." I offered her $15, which was more than enough to cover the actual gas. She called it insulting. We went back and forth until finally she huffed. "Fine. But next time you need a ride, don't ask me." "I won't," I said. 2 days later, she sent me another request, this time for $30, claiming it was a compromise amount. I declined the request and sent her $15 with the note, "Gas only. Final payment." She accepted it but didn't talk to me for 2 weeks. Then she texted asking if I could help her move some furniture. I said sure. My rate was $25 an hour, plus mileage. She was furious. "That's different," she said. "Friends help each other move." I replied. "Friends help each other drive too." But you charged me for it. She accused me of being petty, but I think it was the first time she realized how ridiculous she'd been. We're still friends, but things haven't felt the same. Whenever she offers to do something as a favor, I wait for the invoice to follow. It's funny how quickly you learn who treats friendship like a relationship and who treats it like a business transaction. That chapter is over. Now let's drift into another tale you won't believe. Story 7. The kid next door tried to sell me my own longboard. Last summer, my longboard disappeared from my garage. At first, I thought maybe I'd misplaced it. But no, the hooks where I hung it were empty, the lock slightly bent. I filed a police report, knowing recovery was unlikely. 2 days later, I spotted Noah, the 13-year-old kid from 3 houses down, cruising past on my board. Same neon deck art, same custom trucks, same scratch on the tail from when I'd slammed into a curb last year. I called out, "Hey, that's mine!" He slowed, shrugged. "Nah, my cousin gave it to me." I pointed at the scratch. "That's from me." He shrugged again, slick as an adult liar. "My cousin said that's from when he learned tricks." I told him I was calling the police. That's when he grinned and said, "We can work something out. I'll sell it back to you. $40. Fair deal, right?" I stood there stunned. He had stolen my board and was trying to charge me to get it back. "I'm not paying you," I said. "It's mine." He sighed dramatically. "Fine. 30, but that's my final offer." I pulled out my phone, started dialing. He panicked. Okay, don't call. Look, I didn't steal it. My cousin gave it to me. But since you're so sure it's yours, maybe you can pay me a finder's fee." "A finder's fee for returning stolen property?" I asked. He nodded, dead serious. "Yeah. I took care of it for 2 whole days. I even tightened the trucks. That's worth something." I grabbed the board from him. He let go reluctantly, muttering, "This is unfair. I was just trying to help." The next day, Noah knocked on my door. He wore a baseball cap with a homemade logo drawn in Sharpie, Noah's Boards. He held a clipboard and cleared his throat like a salesman. "For just $10 a week, I'll make sure nobody steals your board again," he said. "That's my new business model." I stared at him, speechless. He was essentially offering me a protection racket. For protection from himself. I told him if I ever caught him touching my property again, I'd call the cops for real. He pouted, then tried the house next door, pitching his board security plan to my neighbors. To this day, whenever I roll past his house, he gives me a look like I missed out on the business deal of the century. But I've also learned something. Some people develop entrepreneurial spirit early, sometimes a little too early, and aimed in exactly the wrong direction. That's one story finished. Take a breath, settle in, and get ready for the next. Story 8. A stranger tried to give me a haircut in a cafe. Tuesday morning, I sat in my usual cafe corner, laptop open, latte in hand, hair tied back in a loose ponytail. I'd been meaning to book a haircut for weeks, but life got in the way. Apparently, that fact was obvious to everyone, including the stranger who materialized behind me. I felt the first tug on my hair and spun around. A woman in her 50s stood there with a pair of small scissors. "Don't worry," she said soothingly. "Just cleaning up your split ends. You'll thank me." I jumped up so fast my chair screeched. "Excuse me?" She smiled calmly. "I'm a licensed stylist. It was driving me crazy watching you sit there with damaged hair." I told her she couldn't just cut a stranger's hair. She tilted her head like I was the unreasonable one. "You don't have to be so dramatic. It'll only take 2 minutes." The barista noticed and came over, asking her to stop. "This is discrimination against cosmetologists," she barked, waving her scissors. "I'm offering free services." I moved to another table, thinking she'd back off. Wrong. She sat across the cafe, glaring at me and scribbling in a notebook. Every few minutes she'd glance up, shake her head disapprovingly, and jot something down. Finally, curiosity got the better of me. "What are you writing?" I asked. "Hair damage assessment," she said seriously. "Split ends, uneven length, probable protein deficiency. Fascinating case study." I nearly choked on my latte. I told her to leave me alone or I'd call the police. "You're being stubborn," she sighed. "You don't even know how much better you'd look with a trim." When I started packing my laptop, she rushed back. "Wait. At least let me show you with one section." She raised the scissors again. Other customers pulled out their phones, recording the bizarre scene. The barista warned her again, "Cut it out, or the cops would be called." She finally backed off, but not before leaving a business card on my table, Nancy's Mobile Cuts. As I headed for the exit, I heard her approach another woman. "Excuse me, have you considered layers? They'd suit your face shape." I left before I saw how that ended. But I couldn't stop thinking about it the rest of the week. Who carries scissors around waiting to ambush strangers with free trims? Later, I learned from a coworker that she tried the same thing at another cafe across town. Apparently, she considered it a public service. Now I never sit with my back to the room in public places. And whenever I hear scissors snipping, I check over my shoulder. That story has ended. Rest your mind for a moment, we've still got more to explore. Story 9. My neighbor painted my house without asking. I came home from a long weekend away and immediately knew something was wrong. The west-facing wall of my yellow house was now bright electric blue. Not a tasteful accent, blinding neon. My neighbor, Gerald, was watering his lawn and waved cheerfully. "Welcome back! What do you think of the improvement?" I marched over stunned. "You painted my house?" "Just the one wall," he said proudly. "That yellow was looking tired. I figured I'd help freshen it up." I told him he had no right. He shrugged. "I had the time. Paint was on sale. Blue is more modern." When I said I wanted it restored, he frowned. "Why? I improved it. You should be thanking me." I called the non-emergency police line. An officer came, looked at the wall, and sighed. "Yes, this counts as property damage." Gerald defended himself. "It was free labor." "She's ungrateful." The officer explained you can't just paint other people's property. Gerald was cited and ordered to repaint the wall within 2 weeks. The next day, he trudged to Home Depot, muttering about colorblind neighbors. He tried 3 shades before landing on something close to my original yellow. I still had to touch up spots myself. As he worked, he called across the fence. "You're making a mistake." Blue looked better. When he finally finished, the wall looked almost right again. Gerald hasn't spoken to me since, except to shake his head disapprovingly whenever I step outside. It's wild how some people think their aesthetic vision overrides property rights. He truly believed he was doing me a favor. I learned 2 things. Always check your house carefully after a trip, and never underestimate a neighbor with too much time on his hands and paint on sale. Another tale complete. The final story is coming up next. Story 10. The park stranger who claimed my frisbee. Last Saturday, my girlfriend and I were tossing a frisbee in the park. After about 20 minutes, my throw went wide, landing near a guy sitting on a blanket reading. I jogged over. "Thanks, that's ours," I said, holding out my hand. He looked up calmly. "Actually, I think I'll keep this. It's a nice one." I laughed, waiting for him to toss it back. He didn't. He spun it in his hands, admiring the design. "It's mine," I repeated. He shrugged. "Finders keepers. That's how parks work." I pointed out my name written underneath in permanent marker. He flipped it over, saw it, and smirked. "Anyone could have written this. Doesn't prove anything." I showed him a photo on my phone from earlier that morning. Me holding the same frisbee. "Photos can be faked," he said dismissively. By then, my girlfriend had joined us. "Are you serious?" she asked. "That's obviously ours." "Not anymore." he said. Possession is 9/10 of the law. I couldn't believe I was arguing legal philosophy over a $15 frisbee. Finally, I threatened to call park security. He hesitated, then reluctantly tossed it back. Fine. But you don't deserve it. People should share. As I walked away, I heard him mutter, selfish. The whole situation was so absurd we laughed until our sides hurt. But underneath the laughter was a strange unease, because here was a guy who genuinely thought he could keep something clearly labeled as mine. It was a good reminder. Sometimes the wildest encounters don't happen online. They happen in broad daylight, with a stranger who thinks your frisbee is now his because you dropped it near his blanket. Story 11. My neighbor tried to charge me rent for my own driveway. For 3 quiet years I treated my driveway like what it was, a sloped ribbon of cracked concrete that could hold 2 cars if you believed in geometry. It wasn't pretty, but it was mine. Then Edith moved in next door. She arrived with a clipboard, a visor, and the kind of energy that turns cul-de-sacs into committees. On her second week, she caught me unloading groceries and cleared her throat the way a teacher does before a pop quiz. About the parking arrangement, she said, tapping her clipboard. I've completed a boundary assessment. I looked at the driveway, then at her. What arrangement? She pointed to a hairline crack that ran like a pale river down the concrete. Your property line, she declared, bisects this driveway. Technically, you've been using our half without compensating us. Out of fairness, I'm proposing a shared use fee. I waited for the smile, the wink, the gotcha. None came. She handed me a sheet of paper with a logo that looked suspiciously like clip art scales of justice. Driveway cost share agreement, it read. Below that, a table. Monthly base access $35, peak time surcharge $15, night parking surcharge $10, tire wear offset $8. At the bottom, in swoopy pen, Edith, driveway coordinator. Edith, I said slowly. I paid for this driveway when I bought the house. It's on my deed. She nodded primly. I'm sure you believe that. But I've done extensive research on easements and historical right-of-way. In communities like ours, driveways evolve into shared resources. Like a library? Exactly, she said, pleased. And libraries have late fees. She pointed to a line item. Blockage penalty, if your vehicle prevents our hypothetical vehicle from accessing the shared half. Your hypothetical vehicle? We're downsizing, she said, as if that explained a ghost car. I told her, gently at first, that there would be no fees, no surcharges, no tire wear offsets. She pursed her lips. I understand this is a change. People resist change. It's not a change, I said. It's fiction. That evening, a laminated sign appeared at the edge of the slab, shared driveway zone, register with coordinator. My name was not the one listed as coordinator. The visor had won day 1. I wasn't planning on letting it win day 2. The next morning, my car wore a fluorescent notice under the wiper, unauthorized use, first warning. The notice listed outstanding balances, totaling $68, some combination of peak hour ingress, buffer occupancy, and apron encroachment, which sounded like crimes committed by a very clumsy baker. I took photos, emailed my title and plat map to the property manager. We share an old, small HOA that mostly exists to send holiday newsletters, and then went next door to talk. Edith opened the door with her clipboard already cocked. I held up the notice. This is not a thing. It's a courtesy, she said. A formal one. I own this entire driveway, I said, showing her the plat map. She peered at the lines like they were tea leaves. Lines can be deceptive, she murmured. They were drawn before SUVs. I kept my voice even. The HOA can confirm. There's no shared access easement here. She brightened. Wonderful. We'll invite them into the process. By lunch, she had CC'd the HOA board, 3 neighbors, and what looked like her personal mailing list on an email entitled Driveway Governance Pilot. The pilot included a calendar, color-coded usage blocks, and a suggestion that I could opt out of fees by parking on the street. I replied with the deed, the legal description, and a simple sentence: "There is no pilot. Please remove your signage and stop placing warnings on my vehicle." That evening, I came home to find 2 orange cones stationed on her half, like tiny sentries. A laminated badge dangled from each: access control. Edith watched from her porch, sipping tea like a lifeguard on break. I parked, got out, and calmly moved the cones onto her lawn. She sprang up. "Obstruction is billable." "Edith," I said, and felt my patience pick a careful path. "I'm not paying you to park in my own driveway." "Then you leave me no choice." I braced for a tow truck. Instead, she produced a measuring tape and began documenting angles, distances, and the precise location of my tires. "Paperwork matters," she said, clicking her pen like a metronome. It did. That was why mine already lived in a tidy folder labeled deed. The HOA president, Marta, arrived the next morning with a binder and an expression you reserve for raccoons in your pantry. We stood at the end of the driveway while Edith presented her thesis: Historical Use Patterns, Fairness Doctrine, the Tyranny of Early Birds. Marta listened, nodded, and then, with the gentleness of a preschool teacher, said, "The driveway is entirely on lot 17. That's not yours, Edith." Edith frowned. "But the crack." "Concrete cracks are not legal boundaries," Marta said. "They're concrete cracks." Edith rallied. "What about community spirit?" Marta smiled. "Community spirit doesn't mean billing your neighbor." The cones were removed. The sign came down. Edith was instructed, formally in writing, to stop placing anything on my property, including warnings, invoices, or access control devices. She signed the acknowledgement with a flourish and the tiniest sigh, as if releasing a balloon you secretly hoped would defy physics. For a week, the driveway was just a driveway again. Then, one morning, a small card appeared on my windshield. No threats. No sums. Just 3 words in neat, looping handwriting: "Parking courtesy hours?" Below it, a grid with suggested times when my car might inspire less friction. I stood there for a long moment, card in hand, and then wrote back in pencil, "I'll be considerate." Because the truth is, even when you're right, it's nice to be kind, once you've pried your life out from under someone's clipboard. The cones never returned. The visor did, but only to shade a neighbor watering petunias. That night, when I backed into my own, entirely unshared concrete, the tires made a comfortable hush across the surface. Not a victory march, just the sound of something ordinary being ordinary again. Which, after all the forms and fees and phantom cars, felt like luxury. That story's finished. Take a slow breath, settle in, and we'll drift into the next one. Story 12. A coworker stole my lunch and tried to sell it back to me. Everyone at my office labels their food like it's kindergarten. Sharpen names on Tupperware, Post-its on yogurt, the occasional passive-aggressive "Do not touch" on a burrito foil. It mostly works, until it doesn't. The week Brent joined the team, the fridge turned into a lawless frontier. It started with a missing soda. Then a vanished apple. Then my leftover curry, which I had specifically been hoarding for a tragic Thursday afternoon. By Friday, I switched to a decoy, store-brand hummus labeled "Garlic Experiment, do not consume." It disappeared in an hour. At 12:15, my actual lunch, a container of homemade lasagna, was missing. I checked the back, the veggie drawer, the weird top shelf where yogurt goes to die. Nothing. I closed the fridge and nearly collided with Brent. He was cradling a beige container like a newborn. "Looking for something?" he asked. "My lasagna." He smiled, and I saw the thing I'd missed all week, not carelessness, but commerce. "I launched a solution," he said. "Brent's Bistro. I curate unlabeled items, portion them, and boom, affordable lunches. Win-win." I blinked. It was labeled. "Labels can peel," he said. Also, the handwriting was ambiguous. It was my name. Subjective. He lifted the lid, and a wave of oregano hit the air. Tell you what, I'll give you a staff discount. $7. I plated it nicely. He gestured toward a paper plate with a sprig of parsley like a final insult. I laughed, because the other option was shouting, I'm not buying my lunch back. He shrugged, offended. It's not yours anymore. It's product. I walked to HR. Not to snitch, just to ask how much parsley you're allowed to steal from a colleague before it becomes a policy issue. HR, to their credit, didn't laugh. They listened, took notes, and asked for specifics, dates, items, photos if I had them. I did. I keep receipts like tiny diaries. They called Brent in for a chat. He returned 20 minutes later, unrepentant and victorious. Great news, he said, leaning on my cubicle wall. They love initiative. We're going to create a shared snack budget, and I'll manage it. Reduces waste. He tossed a packet of crackers onto my desk like confetti. First one's free. I stared. Brent, you're not managing food. You're eating people's lunches. He frowned, as if I'd missed a memo. Only ones that would otherwise languish and spoil. I'm providing a service. My lasagna was not languishing. It was at 12:15 on a Friday. That's the opposite of languish. He rolled his eyes. Staggering entitlement. He reached for the crackers back, thought better of it, and left. So I started labeling my lunches like legal exhibits. Property of my name. Not communal. Do not remove. I slapped a timestamp on the lid and a second label inside the container so that if someone did the old peel and steal, they'd get called out mid-bite. It worked, for 2 days. On Wednesday, my salad was missing and a Venmo request pinged my phone. Brent's Bistro, $5.50, Capri's Bowl, Premium Balsamic. Premium Balsamic. I don't even own Premium Balsamic. I marched to the break room. Brent was there, giving a TED talk to 2 interns about workplace efficiencies. My salad, my bowl, sat half-eaten in front of him. I took a photo, took the bowl, and tossed the rest. I'm escalating, I said. He sniffed. To whom? HR already approves. To everyone, I said, and sent a polite, factual email to the team. Items disappearing, dates, the Venmo screenshot, the parsley. The replies came back fast and furious. Turns out many of us had been curated. The intern's soup. The designer's overnight oats. A manager's protein shake, rebranded as a workout sampler. One reply included a photo of Brent's handwritten menu taped inside the fridge. Today, TBA. Under it, smaller, to be appropriated. HR called a second meeting. This one included my manager and theirs. Brent tried to spin, words twirling like spaghetti, waste reduction, office culture, innovation. He used synergy, without blinking. Then HR placed a stack of printed Venmo requests on the table and quietly, the photo of my name inside the salad lid. There's a moment when a person realizes the room has turned. Brent hit it like a glass door. His face did a 4-step routine: surprise, indignation, calculation, charm. He chose charm. Okay, I hear you, he said. Going forward, I'll only repurpose items after 5 p.m., with a sign-off protocol. No, my manager said, in the voice that had ended meetings and rumors alike. Going forward, you will not touch other people's food. At all. HR slid a policy acknowledgement across the table. Brent signed, lips pressed thin. Can I still manage the snack budget? He asked, smaller now. No, HR said. The fridge became quiet again. Labels stayed where they were placed. My lasagna survived to live its second life on a righteous Thursday, tasting faintly of justice. A week later, an email went out. Brent had moved on to pursue opportunities. The interns celebrated with premium balsamic someone actually purchased. I brought in a pan of lasagna to share and labeled it for everyone in big, friendly letters. It felt good to choose what's communal on purpose. That chapter is closed. Let your mind settle. The next story is waiting. Story 13. My roommate rented out my bedroom on Airbnb. When Kira asked if I wanted to split a sunny 2-bedroom near the park, I said yes before the sun finished the sentence. She seemed normal in the way people do when you meet them for 20 minutes in a coffee shop. Tidy tote, reliable laugh. Work from home 2 days a week. We made a chore chart, we Venmoed the deposit, we hung a print that said this must be the place. For a few months it was. Then, one Sunday night, I came home early from a weekend trip. My suitcase rolled over the threshold to the quiet click of a stranger's keyboard. A man I had never seen sat at our dining table, barefoot, surrounded by my mail. He looked up, startled, and then smiled like a clerk. "You must be the host," he said. The code worked great. I looked at the keypad, then at him. "I live here." He blinked. "Oh." Kira didn't mention a roommate. She listed it as a private apartment. I felt the floor move. "Listed it where?" "Airbnb," he said cheerfully, as if the syllables might land on a soft cushion. He gestured to a tidy suitcase by Kira's door. "I booked 5 nights. Great reviews." He had a reservation page open on his laptop. Photos of our living room, my throw blanket artfully draped, our kitchen, my kettle staged beside a lemon, our balcony, my chair slightly more toward the light. The title, Sunlit Urban Oasis, entire place. There was a photo of my bedroom door, closed, captioned, "Second bedroom not accessible during some stays." I texted Kira, "Call me now," and got back a breezy, "In yoga." Silent hour. "All good?" The man asked where the spare towels were. I found my mouth and said, "1 minute," then wheeled my suitcase into my room and locked the door like I was sealing a vault. Kira called 20 minutes later, voice warm with post-yoga serotonin. "Hey! Isn't he nice?" "He's in marketing. Very clean vibes." "You rented out our apartment," I said. "As an entire place." "While I live here." She hummed. "Well, technically you were out of town." It seemed like such a waste not to monetize the space. "It's not space," I said. "It's my home. And my bedroom is not accessible during some stays. It's always not accessible. It's a side hustle," she said. "Everyone has one." I listed facts, because facts are anchors. Our lease prohibits subletting. Our insurance won't cover guests. I did not consent to a stranger sleeping near my tea bags. She said gently, "You're being reactive." I vetted him. "You what?" "Read his reviews. He's a super guest." In the living room, the super guest asked if the pour-over kettle had a gooseneck. He preferred precision. I pressed the phone to my chest, breathed, then told Kira I needed him out by tonight and the listing down by forever. She countered. The booking was non-refundable. She'd lose her host rating. Perhaps I could stay with a friend for a few nights and she'd split the payout with me. I stared at my doorknob and imagined it quietly combusting. I emailed our landlord, attaching screenshots. I printed the lease and highlighted the sublet clause like it was scripture. Then I opened my door and very calmly told the man the stay was cancelled due to a lease violation and that we'd help him find a hotel. He was surprisingly kind about it. He'd suspected something was off when the listing photos included 2 toothbrushes. The landlord moved with the speed of someone who despises liability. He called Kira, used the phrase immediate breach, and arrived with a clipboard that made Edith's look like fan art. He inspected the keypad, took a photo of the listing, and watched as Kira removed it from the platform under his patient gaze. He gave us both a written warning: any future subletting would result in termination. I felt my lungs drop from my ears back into my chest. Kira tried to negotiate with me after he left. "What if we just do private referrals? Cash. No platform." She said it softly, like you might suggest tacos. "No," I said. "We will not do sub-anything." She pouted, a word I don't use lightly. "You're not being a team player. Teams don't list each other's bedrooms." I sat on the arm of the couch and finally let the anger seep out of my shoulders. This is my home, Kira. I need it to be safe. To her credit, she apologized the next day. It was the kind that hides a hinge. I'm sorry you felt unsafe. But it was something, and the listing stayed gone. 2 months later, she moved in with a boyfriend who believed in van life and business plans. The landlord let me take over the lease. I bought a new kettle with a gooseneck for myself, because precision is actually nice when you're not making coffee for a stranger in your kitchen. Sometimes at night, when the city hums like a distant ocean, I look at the keypad and think about the ways doors are meant to work. You give codes to friends, to family, to people who knock and wait. Not to commerce. I still have the print that says this must be the place. I left it up. Not as a promise, just as a practice. Thanks for hanging out tonight. If any of these stories reminded you of a neighbor, a roommate, or that one person who thinks rules are more like suggestions, you're not alone. Drop your favorite moment in the comments, tell me which story had you yelling at the screen, and what you want to hear next time. If you enjoy these long listens while you build or wind down, subscribing genuinely helps me keep these rolling. Sleep well, build something cozy, and I'll see you in the next one.